that I just wanted to say a few words about the synagogue, about what is happening, and we have been trying to communicate more and more with people. When all of this started, we thought that there would be intense meetings throughout the closed down period. We thought it would be very, very complicated. And actually, after the first few weeks, things were just simply, the building was simply closed. We transitioned all of our programming remarkably onto online platforms. And again, I want to give credit and appreciation to the entire Bethel staff for so ably being able to rethink and recalibrate their programmatic areas and to then turn it onto online platforms. And of course, the synagogue leadership for giving the support and the encouragement and even just the personal check-ins as to how the staff has been doing throughout this time period. But now we're transitioning to something different, that now we're getting ready for countywide to move to phase 2. And actually now it's becoming more complicated, because closing down and turning to online, that was clear what the parameters were, that the building is not open or available for the vast array of programs that we normally do, not just about Shabbat services, but it has not been available for the schools, the preschool or the religious school, for senior caucus events, lunches that take place, mahjong games that happen, and on and on and on. But now that the county is opening, that I've been receiving a deluge of questions. When are we meeting? What are we doing? How are we going to do it? And so I thought I just wanted to spend a moment to address that, not to give all of the answers, but to let you know how we are thinking about it, and the restrictions that are still in place. So number one is that the synagogue is not a binary question of open or close, that it is not a question of will we immediately move from the closed status that we have by county regulation to having large events back at the synagogue. That our opening will always take safety number one. That will be the first consideration. Really, that's the only consideration that we have, the safety of our members. And then following that will also be a realization that the building will open gradually, incrementally. Different programmatic areas of the synagogue will start to come back into the building, possibly at different speeds at different moments, meaning it may be more possible with safety considerations to allow 10 young people to come together faster than it is to have 10 people that are seniors that are in a vulnerable population in their 70s or 80s to come together. That the team of doctors that have been advising us have made one thing perfectly clear to all of us. They said that even though we are fed up collectively with these closures, Rebecca's not on the medical task force, but looking over to her, that even though we are tired kind of emotionally and psychologically of all of these closures, and things are starting to open up, restaurants for outdoor seating, etc., that they have made it exceedingly clear that the science has not changed, that the virus has not changed, that the infectious nature of the virus has not changed, even though we're sick and tired of being at home, and that must be taken into account. So the fact that stores or restaurants are opening, bars are opening, beaches are opening, that does not change the science behind it, and that is what is going to guide us as to how we navigate these gatherings as the synagogue gradually reopens. That many people have looked at the county guidance as for phase 2. The phase 2 says for houses of worship, whether we're outside or inside, they give a ratio of 200 feet one person or cluster, a family cluster, whatever your bubble is, to one person or cluster within 200 feet of worship space. Calculating the worship space that we have here, and making it a number that is one that can be replicated from week to week, that number only lands us at about, with 400 seats in the sanctuary, at around 20 people in the sanctuary. That's a remarkably small number, but one that I think is important that people know that that is not our restriction, though it's one that we're comfortable with. That is the county regulations for phase 2. So if we take that number as 20, when we move to phase 3, where the criteria adjust from 200, one cluster per 200 square feet, to one cluster for 100 square feet in phase 3, realize that only moves us to around 40 people or so, if that's how the math works. So I just want to share that so that we're setting expectations with each other as to what is going to be possible here. Now, one of the quick priorities is certainly going to be able to work and to celebrate with B'nai Mitzvah families. Remember, from March till June, B'nai Mitzvahs have been rescheduled into the fall and winter and spring of next year. And so being able to work with families, even with those small numbers, and being able to celebrate with them with social distancing, with masks on, et cetera, all of those precautions have to continue even with those limited numbers in place. So that will certainly be a priority for us, to be working with the families. We've been having many Zoom conversations with B'nai Mitzvah families. The next one for the March till December of 2020. March till December of 2020. The next Zoom call is this week, and we're scheduling one for the January till June of 2021, another Zoom conversation for people there, because we're working hard to be transparent on these. We do not have answers. We can tell you how the county regulations play out in our worship spaces, and the amount of support and positivity and appreciation that people have been expressing to the synagogue is very much appreciated in return. That we're bringing creativity of having B'nai Mitzvah on Mondays or Thursdays, and not just on Saturdays, of doing things over Zoom, of using different platforms, and really bringing a lot of creativity to these experiences. So what is the takeaway from these brief comments? One is, of course, that we're going to keep safety as our first and foremost priority throughout this. Two is that we are aware of county regulations, and while it seems like it is opening up and the world is opening up for events, that has not changed the science behind the virus and what is going on, and to keep that in mind as well. And the third takeaway from this is that we want to be transparent and creative in how to keep our community together, to respond to the needs, to keep each other feeling that we are part of a Bethel community, and as much as possible to see beyond the sense of isolation that so many of us have been feeling throughout this. So I look forward to having the sanctuary filled with more than just 3 people, even though I know that will be a gradual process. There will be bumps along the way, because we are learning as we collectively as a nation are learning as we go, and we are under tremendous leadership of the synagogue, and getting the advice of medical professionals as to how to navigate this. Despite those advantages, we know that there will be forward motion and possibly taking backward motion as well, should we need to bring more restrictions. And I think the last point that I don't think is widely known is that we're also working in close coordination with the area synagogues and other houses of worship that I think is important to realize, so that we're not just standing on an island by ourselves, but working in collaboration with the churches all up and down Old Georgetown Road and in Bethesda, and working with the synagogues as well, has been something that's been very important. Because this is not a Bethel issue, this is how are we collectively as houses of worship engaging with each other, engaging with our membership and worshipers. And I think that that's been actually one of the silver linings of this, that it has brought us as a broad worship community closer together and allowed us to cross bridges together. So I wanted to just share some of those reflections as we are working to get our messages and our explanation as to how we're stepping forward with this more and more, especially as we're about to enter, it appears, to enter phase 2 in this upcoming week at some point. So with all of that said, and I hope that was helpful, please feel free to email us with your thoughts, your questions, and we'll try to respond to you individually with concerns that you have or thoughts that you have.